It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the first 4 movies of March of 2006, March 3rd to be exact. And, certainly have a wide range of different movies here. We have an action movie with Bruce Willis in it. It's directed by Richard Donner. We have a sci-fi post-apocalyptic movie from the director of Equilibrium. We have a kids movie about a mermaid, and we also have a block party hosted by Dave Chappelle, back when everybody liked Dave Chappelle, compared to where Dave Chappelle is now, of course. But we'll get to those movies as we go along here. But let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Bruce Willis and Mos Def, starring in Richard Donner's 16 Blocks. Trailer there kind of gives you an indication of what the plot is. You have Bruce Willis as an aging New York police detective, and this should be his last assignment before a well-deserved retirement, and the job is simple: to take this transport, played by Mos Def, all the way to the New York State Supreme Court building, 16 blocks from the police department, until it wasn't. Now Jack and Eddie are on the run from a group of corrupt cops, one of them led by David Morse, who will do anything in their power to stop them from reaching the Supreme Court. It's a race against time that may cost Jack everything he's devoted his job to. It's one of those movies that's shot in real time, and this is produced by a company that also did 88 Minutes, which is another movie that was produced in real time. However, unlike 88 Minutes, where the concept was pretty good, but the movie was not great, the concept here is really good, and I think this movie is really well done. I think it's definitely one of Richard Donner's more underrated movies. Not just one of his underrated movies, but, you know, Bruce Willis, Mos Def. This is a movie that doesn't really get talked about all that much, but it's a really good movie, man. I really like this film a lot. I actually saw this in theaters back when it came out, and I really liked it a lot. I think Bruce Willis gives a very solid performance in here. Mos Def, I think, really is the star of the whole movie. Like, he really elevates himself to another level to really give this movie that character that you want to root for, because like he's a guy that is stuck in the middle of the situation here, and you want to get behind these two guys in general. But David Morse plays a very good villain in here too, kind of the corrupt cop here, and there's just so much intensity. There's so much amazing stuff going on here. You know, the film overall is very well done. It is a very flawed film too. There are moments where the plot doesn't really go as far as you think it could possibly go, but it does its job well enough to, I think that what I would say that it is most definitely a very, very underrated film. It also helps that you have a really good writer in Richard Wenk, who has written a lot of movies I've actually liked. He did The Expendables 2, which I think is probably my favorite of the Expendables movies. All the Equalizer movies with Denzel Washington, which I think are really good. The Magnificent Seven, which I think is a really good film. Jack Reacher, Never Go Back. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff I've really liked in general. And this is another one of those movies where I think it's just really... It's just a well-done film. It's a film that keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it really keeps you invested in what's going on. I like it a lot. I highly recommend it. Criminally underrated movie, 16 Blocks. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is not that good, but it's here. So let's talk about Milla Jovovich in Ultraviolet. Would that trailer have given you any indication this movie was about vampires? Sort of. I mean, it's essentially another Equilibrium, because in this movie, Milla Jovovich is a woman who's infected with a fictional vampire-like disease and lives in a future dystopia where anyone infected with the contagious disease is immediately sentenced to death. But with the help of advanced martial arts skills, a group of rebel hemophages, and a boy named Six whose blood may contain a cure for the disease, Violet goes on a mission to overthrow the futuristic governor and defeat Ferdinand Daxus. I mean, quite literally, everything about this movie is so similar to Equilibrium. And Equilibrium was a bad movie. At least I thought it was a bad movie. So, let's take that same director and put him with the most overrated action star of all time, Milla Jovovich, which, I'm sorry, I hate this woman's acting. She might be a sweet person in real life, but I'm sorry, this woman sucks at being an action heroine. I mean, every time I see her in one of these Resident Evil movies or the movie like this movie in particular, like, she never comes off as a threatening person whatsoever. Like, she never comes off as somebody who's like, take me like, she comes off as a person that's just thinks she's threatening, and then when she actually gets in your face, it's just like, take me seriously. Like, I can never take her seriously whenever she's in these movies or the Resident Evil movies. And this is the pure definition of why she should never be taken seriously as a threatening person in any way, shape, or form. Like, whether she's the hero or the bad guy, because good lord, she's terrible in this movie. Like, I've not seen her in one movie that I've that I remember that I actually like her in. Like, she barely got by in The Fifth Element, but other than that, everything I've seen her in has just been absolutely horrible. Nothing against the actress herself. She's probably a nice person in real life, but I'm sorry, when it comes to movies like this is just not her crack cup of tea. At least, again, my opinion. I am very, very limited in that category, but yeah, like she does not add to anything in this movie in general. It doesn't help that the movie itself is just, like I said, a ripoff of Equilibrium. Like, it literally takes note for note everything that Equilibrium has, except change it around so it doesn't. It's like when you know when your best friend's copying your homework in high school, and it's just like, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, sure. Just go ahead and change some things around so it doesn't look like you cheated or anything. Like, that's what this movie feels like. That's what this movie is like, because they literally take so many beats by Equilibrium in this movie that it's just hard not to see those things, and it's just like it's just not a good movie either. Like, visually, it's really too stylistic to look at in a bad way too. Like, these aren't even impressive looking visuals that could save the film in general, but these are just bad looking visuals in general here. It feels like you're watching a PS2 game blown up for the big screen. Like, this is a bad movie. This is a really, really bad movie. I don't think I need to say too much more about it. Like, everything that could go wrong with this movie went wrong, and yeah, it's a movie that has been largely forgotten, thank God. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's not a good movie. It's a terrible movie. Avoid it like the plague. So that is Ultraviolet. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is another ripoff of something you might be familiar with. See if you can spot the two similarities by looking at this trailer, a little bit of the trailer for Aquamarine. Hi Splash, Hi Little Mermaid. I mean, this is literally the live-action Little Mermaid remake of, what, almost 20 years before we actually got the actual live-action Little Mermaid remake. But in this story, you have a dreary Florida beach resort village where luscious-limbed lifeguard Raymond is the main attraction for the girls. Teenage buddies Claire and Haley, played by JoJo and Emma Roberts, become experts on him by observation, but never dare actually approach him. So they're basically just stalking him, pretty much. And after this closing summer season will be separated by one's parents moving to Australia, they then find a storm washed up as a sassy mermaid, played by Sarah Paxton, in a swimming pool, who promises them a wish if they help her prove to Neptune that love exists. And Raymond is the only creature resembling a love god. So yeah, it's literally taking a lot of elements from Splash and the Little Mermaid. Like, but, I mean, I don't even want to say it's a bad movie per se. It's a movie not made for me. I realize that. I mean, I'll give a credit. The three actresses, Sarah Paxton, JoJo, Emma Roberts, they're perfectly fine in the movie. They play their parts very well here. You know, everyone's playing their parts to a T. Unfortunately, there's just nothing really that engaging or fun or entertaining about it to really give them anything to make this movie stand out. Like, you want to know what the one thing this movie stands out for? This image from the movie that you would swear looks like the beginning of a porno movie, a lesbian porno movie. Take a look at this. Like, I mean, this is an image that's been out there for years now, and you would never think that this little image here would come from a movie clearly made for teenage girls. But no, this looks like a scene that's literally the start of a lesbian porno movie, or a porno where, you know, the two girls are asking, or start looking at this guy and just like, you know, you want to join us or something like that. It's just like, that's what this image looks like here. That's the one thing I remember from this movie, and that's not even something that's not even what the movie's intentions were. And that wasn't even something that I realized until later on down the road, that this image right here came from this movie. And it's just like, it's hard not to look at this movie and see that image, except for anything that's not what you think that image is supposedly going for here. It's just like, I may have been just rambling there, but you get the idea here. If that's the most memorable thing I could say about this movie, then this movie really does not have anything of worthiness to it, except for the performances. The three performances, I think, are fine, but the script overall just isn't worth it in the end. But like I said, this is a movie that's not made for me. This is clearly made for a teenage audience, and teenagers really did grow up with this movie, and most of them have grown up to say that, hey, you know, this was one of my favorite romantic comedies of all time. So what am I going to say to that? It's just like, I don't know. Me personally, it just didn't work for me. But then again, it wasn't made for me back then. It wasn't made for me back then. It certainly wasn't made for me now. And it's just, it is what it is. It's not even that it's a bad movie. It's very harmless. But you do think that you do want it to be a little bit more original or something a little bit different, so it's not compared to the far superior mermaid movies that we've gotten since then. But yeah, there's nothing really of value to this film whatsoever, unfortunately. So. Yeah, to me, it didn't work for me, but for its target audience, it'll work just fine for them. So yeah, that's Aquamarine. So let's go ahead and get to probably my overall favorite movie of the week in general here, and that is Michel Gondry's Dave Chappelle's Block Party. You know, back when Dave Chappelle was actually one of the most likable people in Hollywood, and was coming off of a big controversy at the time, but not the kind of controversy that he would have nowadays. We'll delve into that in just a second here. But the story here is that Dave Chappelle is presenting a Brooklyn neighborhood with its very own once-in-a-lifetime free block party. In addition to Chappelle, the roster of artists include Kanye West, Mos Def, Common, Dead Prez, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, The Roots, Big Daddy Kane, and reunited for the first time in over 7 years, the Fugees. You know, it includes private rehearsal footage in Chappelle in the small Ohio town he calls home, where he wanders through town handing out golden tickets to invite several dozen citizens to join the party, providing transportation and lodging for their visit to Brooklyn. Ohio Central State University Marching Band makes the trip and kicks off the festivities at the intersection of Quincy and Downing Streets. It's a diverse crowd, and Chappelle's freestyle wit guides them and us through a celebration of music and comedy, history, and community. Now, keep in mind, this movie was filmed in the summer of 2004, and this was around the time when, you know, Dave Chappelle signed that big contract with Comedy Central to do 2 more seasons of Chappelle's Show, where he got $50 million. And of course, the following year, there was a big thing during the production of the show where Chappelle walked away from his show and kind of went away for a little bit. Like, he really went away for a while. Like, around the time this movie came out, nobody really knew if he was going to come back to the show or not, and then they eventually aired the sketches that were going to air for the supposed 3rd season without Chappelle there. And Chappelle also did a stand-up special, which I think also came out maybe around the same time the 2nd season came out. I think they filmed it around the same time they did this movie, actually, too. Excuse me. But, yeah, this is a very interesting film to look at when you put that into perspective here, because this was just around the time when, you know, this was when Chappelle... You know, this was before he walked away from his hit show, and just how popular he had really become at that point. He was really becoming one of those rising comedic stars, and we thought he was going to be the next big thing, which he was for a good chunk of time here. But of course, in recent years, he's had controversies that have very much alienated his audience in general here. But no matter how you look at him nowadays, the guy is still very funny. If you look back at his older stuff, like his older stuff is still really, really funny. I could still watch Chappelle's Show and get a ton of laughs from all the stuff that happens in that show. And it's just really, really, really funny stuff in general here. And you get a nice mix of comedy with a lot of really good performances from a lot of really talented people in here. There's a lot of really good musical names in here. John Legend is also in here, too. I forgot to mention him. I mean, it's a concert that really, it'd be fun to actually have attended this, to see what this whole thing would have been like in front of me. And yeah, it's a really impressive film in general here, and it helps that you have a director like Michel Gondry, who has such a unique style of filmmaking to him that he can make movies like this feel engaging and feel groundbreaking in general, to make something really entertaining in the long form. It's a really good movie, man. I highly recommend it. It's definitely a film that's worth checking out on a number of different levels, for the performances by the stars, seeing Chappelle doing what he does best. I mean, this is a really good film. I really recommend this film a lot. Definitely check it out. Dave Chappelle's Block Party. And so, with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 3 more movies, including Matthew McConaughey and Sarah Jessica Parker in the romantic comedy Failure to Launch. We also have Tim Allen in Disney's remake of The Shaggy Dog, which you might be surprised at how I actually feel about this one. But we'll talk about that one. We'll also talk about Alexander Aja's remake of The Hills Have Eyes, the classic Wes Craven movie. We'll take a look at all 3 of those movies. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post videos here every day, and you get notifications on when those videos come out. And coming up later on Time About the Movies Flashback, we're starting at the beginning of the month of November, looking at Shelley Long at Hello Again, Less Than Zero, Death Wish 4, The Crackdown, Hiding Out, Made in Heaven, Ruskies, Cry Freedom, and Steel Dawn. So we have a lot of movies to look at on Time About the Movies Flashback. That'll be coming up a little bit later tonight, so stick around. We'll be right back with that.